بطريقة تانية يعني ومش قصدي I'm not saying this to be engaging أو عشان أستهبل يعني بس يعني there is a very important question عشان موضوع ال positive thinking I think يعني بقى يعني حاجة من الحاجات اللي بقت موضة يعني as part of the self-help culture اللي هي ابتدت بس ساعات I think it's misunderstood ف يعني I'm gonna try my best to like إن احنا نشوف what أنا this is based on 2 researchers يعني أنا ما جبتش أي كلام من عندي hopefully أنا فعلا مش هيبقى كلامي يعني this is يعني the work of 2 researchers اللي هم يعني حياتهم كلها عمالين يشوفوا what makes people successful وواحدة منهم واحدة اسمها دكتور كارول دويك من ستانفورد والتاني برضه actually is from Stanford بس هما اسمه BJ Fogg هما الاثنين دكتور كارول دويك هي her whole يعني idea is what is the mindset of successful people وبعدين Dr. BJ Fogg يعني his whole research برضه is how can people learn to be successful practically وهما الاثنين they have 2 very famous books يعني they were very successful you guys may have seen them one of them is called Mindset and the other one is called Tiny Habits and يعني they're both very very research based but I think يعني together I think it'll give us a good understanding of what real positive thinking is عشان there's a lot of again feel like a lot of self-help books and في this idea that يعني we keep saying it to each other حتى يعني and it's true it's good يعني we say just be positive but we want to know what that means and يعني and what makes some people different than other people and this is what both of them were trying to look at
okay
but yeah I think it's a very nice question and it's the same question برضه that يعني I always wonder يعني when people say I'm going to be positive what does that mean exactly hopefully we'll try
اوكي بجد لان ده هتفرق معانا جدا وخصوصا مع كمان الانفايرمنت مع اللي حوالينا ولو كنا خصوصا في اشغالنا ليدرز او اكزامبل للمسيح فاحنا المفروض نفكر ازاي ونتصرف ازاي. شكرا لك اتفضل
no انا اللي متشكر no بالعكس this is the what you said is the perfect introduction so we'll start with يعني the mindset that we should have يعني what makes someone successful or Dr. يعني we'll say Dr. Carol she studied 2 things something called a fixed mindset and something called a growth mindset and it's very very simple yani it's exactly what it sounds like a fixed mindset is people who believed things are very hard to change if I'm not good at something that means I'll never be good at something and the growth mindset is that people look at things as a challenge rather than being يعني determined يعني خلاص this is the way it is and it's always going to stay this way and these are the 5 big ideas that she has and we're going to يعني go through some of them but yeah يعني please interrupt me though so her number 1 thing is the view you adopt for yourself exactly like Uncle Rafael said it profoundly affects the way you lead your life so whatever yani my view on life is going to affect how I live And it's a very simple idea, but it's 100% true. Number 2, believing that your qualities are carved in stone. And this is that mindset, the fixed mindset. It creates this feeling of being less than people around us over and over and over. So if I feel like I have to prove myself, I don't actually learn. And it's maybe paradoxical. يعني فيها كده يعني تناقض يعني طب I'm trying to prove myself and I'm not learning. But it turns out it's because when you're only doing it to prove yourself, يعني that urgency doesn't make us learn. Something about the brain doesn't stick well when we learn this way. Yeah.
معلش, sorry, I don't get it. So it says that if I keep trying to prove myself, I will not learn. Is that what it says?
So if the reason, like when we see people are trying to prove themselves for the sake of just proving themselves, yani it's not that they're taking it on as a challenge. No, they're doing it because they feel like they're not good enough to do it.
Okay.
يعني بيعملوها like to prove other people wrong. They're not doing it for them.
Okay. Yeah.
They're not taking it as a challenge. يعني they're doing it because they feel like they cannot do it. يعني I'm trying to do it because I feel like I cannot.
Not because this is something that I try to challenge myself to do. Okay.
Exactly. That's a very, very different thing. Yani I could see that I'm really, really, really not good at something and say, I'm going to get better. This is very different. I'm going to prove to myself, but not in the way of feeling less than anything else. I'm not doing it to do it. I'm doing it for the challenge to show myself, not because I feel less than anyone else that can do it. So if I do it or I don't do it, it actually doesn't make a big difference. Like when someone has a fixed mindset, when you tell them they can't do something, if you break them, it hurts them. They don't take it as a challenge. And this is her third point. That people, when they have a growth mindset, they don't just seek challenges. Like when you put them in hard situations, these people thrive. Like these people look for ways that they're not afraid to take chances. They're not afraid to do things they don't know how to do because they understand that they're going to learn and they're going to develop in that place. And if you tell them, I'm going to take you and move you to a new country, they're going to say, okay, I'll figure it out. I'm going to take you and put you in a language you don't know. You need to study a language you don't know. Okay, fine. Like, it's not going to be easy, but fine. Let's do it. And they like this idea of being challenged, and they really thrive on it. Again, which is different. Yeah.
يا اسمح لي حتى انا اكد على المعلومه اللي انت قلتها دي. انا لما سافرت كندا في مونتريال، الشركه كانت بتصرف عليا عشان تعلمني فرنش، عشان خاطر يعني اكوميونيكيت ولو بارتشلي بالفرنش. بس انا كنت بقول لهم اوكي، وحضرت فعلا كورس حوالي 3 شهور عشان اثبت لهم ان انا مش هتعلم فرنش، عشان يعني من جوايا شايف ان اللغه صعبه، من جوايا عارف ان انا مش هعرف اتكلم فرنش. وخلص ال3 شهور وما اتكلمتش فرنش، في حين ان زمايلي اللي هم جم مش على جوب وبرضه نفس ويمكن اقل مني في الاديوكيشن واقل في الباك جراوند، لكن عشان خاطر الفرصه الوحيده اللي قدامهم ان هم يشتغلوا لازم يكونوا بيتكلموا فرنش، فتعلموا فرنش وكانوا بيتكلموا فيري فلوينتلي. ففي واحد ساعات بيجرب بس عشان ياكد لنفسه ان هو هيفشل فيها، وفي واحد بيجرب لانه فعلا عايز ياخد التشالنج وينجح فيها لانها هتفتح له افاق جديده وبتاع.
Yeah, exactly. What يعني and it doesn't change anything for you. يعني مثلا أما أنت like to use you as an example معلش سامحني Uncle Rivo
لا
بس
لا
يعني when you didn't learn French and that you didn't take it personally or feel like it made you less than anyone else. You know, because you didn't want to. And you could
ودي
correct me.
ودي يا فادي غالبا بتبقى كمان في حاجات وحاجات تانية لا، يعني في حاجات انا
Yeah.
دخلتها مثلا بجروث مايند ونجحت ان انا اعملها، وفي حاجات دخلتها بفيكسد مايند واثبتت لنفسي ان انا مش هعرف اعملها. فقدامك طريقين تمشيهم وانت اللي بتقرر تمشي في انهي طريق.
No, sure. بس قصدي يعني حتى يعني when you didn't want to learn French, قصدي it wasn't يعني it didn't affect your self-esteem مثلا إن هي
Yeah.
you took it personally عشان you didn't want to begin with.
Yeah.
يعني so I wouldn't even call it a fixed mindset. I would say you just weren't interested. يعني which is a little different. يعني just because someone has a growth mindset, it doesn't mean they're interested in everything.
طب سؤال فادي، هو ده ليه علاقه بالإديوكيشن او بالانفايرمنت او هو ريزد فين، او إيه اللي
Yeah,
بيخلي بعض الناس عندها الجروس مايند سيت وبعض الناس عندها الفيكسد مايند سيت؟
it's a combination of things, but a big part of it is who we learn from and how they teach us. This is one of يعني this is a lot of the research that was done. So Dr. Carol كانت بتروح she used to go to school after school يعني and very bad schools. And she would go to really good schools and she would say, okay, يعني these students are supposed to be the bad students اللي هم they don't have as many opportunities in the less يعني and the schools that had less money, and the ones that had more money طبعا they had much more resources, they were much more able. So what she found over and over is that when you teach students that we're going to be praising them for how hard they work, not how smart they are, they keep learning more and more and more and more. And they get smarter and smarter and smarter, even more than the kids that we always label as smart. So it's how we learn. It's how we are taught to learn. Yani if I teach the people around me, you failed, excellent job, try again. But that's not the culture actually that we're in. We don't praise people trying and failing. We only praise people for trying and succeeding. And this is the opposite of a positive mindset, which is interesting because you would think it's logically that makes no sense. Why do we praise failure and that makes people positive? But if we praise people for being smart, that makes them negative. It's because when we put a label on someone, when we say you are this, then بديله يعني شخصيته في الكلمة دي. You're smart and I have to always be smart. And being smart means I have to get good grades and this and بيبقى ليها set معينة. So when I don't get good grades, I take it personally and it hits me negatively because I have a fixed mindset, even though I'm getting good grades. Whereas when we teach people it's okay to fail and try again, because every time you try, you get a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. That's what makes people really smart and really successful. And there's a lot of examples. And there's, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, where the 10,000 hour rule. And if you want to be an expert at something, they say you have to practice it for at least 10,000 hours. That's about the average time it takes to be an expert in something, anything. And they go through the people that we look at as being successful, and it's because they practice. ولو بصينا حتى عليها في الحياة الروحية, it's very funny. بس يعني they say, what's the best way to learn how to pray? To pray. And to pray and to pray and to pray and to pray, because prayer teaches prayer. يعني and it's an amazing idea, because you see that this is how we're created. And God really created us to become experts through practice, spiritually and functionally وكل حاجة, but we're created for this. عشان كده you see people with a fixed mindset are actually much more likely to fall into things like severe depression, severe anxiety, because كيانهم, right, like who they think they are, is very fragile. It's very fragile. It doesn't allow me to fail. And when I fail, that means khalas, I'm done. Whereas someone that is good at failing is also even better at succeeding, because they're not afraid of it. And that's a growth mindset. So and number 4, the growth mindset does allow people to love what they're doing and to continue to love it in the face of difficulties. Yani, when things get really hard, I don't stop. Whereas people with a fixed mindset, when something becomes hard for them, they say, khalas, yibqa, this thing is not for me. If it's hard, that means I shouldn't try. Because I should only do things that come, and this is one of the worst phrases I think we teach everyone, things that come naturally. Because we teach people, if it's not natural, if you're not naturally good at it, then don't try. We don't teach them to keep going in the face of difficulties. But people with a growth mindset do that. They run after this. And they understand this is where the real pleasure is. That when I go through, like when I figure out the really hard things, that's when I really get better.
طيب
And
معلش sorry.
yeah.
Is there a limit to يعني trying يعني I think إنه at some point, or is there no limit خالص يعني?
There is no limit, but it's like that thing of don't study hard, study smart. They don't keep trying the same thing over and over. People with a growth mindset, if something is not working, they say, not I need to learn this, but they ask a different question. They say, how can I learn this? So they keep asking different ways. And this is the nice thing, because they're not afraid to fail. So they keep trying different things to learn, to get over this difficulty. Right? And number 5, those that have the growth mindset.
Sorry Fady, بس you mean harder much better than smarter بعض الأوقات؟
Yeah, harder is what makes them smarter. Because they keep trying and failing, for they really learn, and that learning is really what makes them successful. That's what ends up making people like this experts. Because when things get hard, they try and try and try until they figure it out.
اوكي، كأن الجسم بيعمل مناعة بنفسه، مش بياخد فاكسين مثلا كده، حاجة سريعة بس حاجة بتبيلد اوفر تايم عشان خاطر اوكي.
Exactly. It's a mental self-developing vaccine. بيعمل مناعة لوحده. Yeah. And those with the growth mindset, they found success in doing their best, in learning and improving. And this is why they become really successful. This is why people become champions in sports. It's because the success that they have is in learning and improving, and it doesn't stop ever. No matter how good they are, it doesn't stop. ودايما بيقولوا مثلا when we're starting something new, someone who is new to something, they're excited by the field, by the category. مثلا if I'm learning basketball, then I'm going to be excited by learning all the the fundamentals of it, all the easy things. But experts actually get excited by the very, very small, tiny things that make them experts. So they study tiny movements and they practice very small things over and over and over. Like an expert surgeon who practices, whether it's hand skills but there's practice in those things. It never happens by accident. And when you talk to those people, you really see how good they are is not an accident. There is hours and hours and hours. Okay. So these were some of the concepts that she had about, and I'll go through a couple of them, but this is about mindset in children. When we teach the kids like that, being smart, because we always say it's either you're smart or you're not. She says no. Children with a growth mindset knew that human qualities like being smart, such as intellectual skills, could be cultivated through effort. These were kids that were taught that the harder you try, the smarter you get. And it's a beautiful message. If you want to get smarter, you want to get better, try harder. Keep trying. So, and again, this is something we teach to kids, and Dr. Carroll, she was saying this is something we could teach to kids right away. As soon as they're walking, from a year old, when we teach them, good job, keep trying, then they do keep trying. When we get mad at them for making mistakes, well, this is how you see that it gets passed down. A father or a mother who gets very angry when their kids make mistake, what kind of a mindset do those parents have? Fixed mindset. And they don't want their kids to make mistakes عشان it offends them as parents. They want their kids to be perfect so they look good. الموضوع ملهوش دعوة بولادهم خالص. Forgive me for saying that, but that's the truth. And this is what ends up happening. So they end up passing down this this fixed mindset. And another thing that she found, not only were the children with a growth mindset not discouraged by failure, so whenever they failed, it didn't affect them, or it didn't hold them back, they didn't even think they were failing. They thought they were learning. So every time they did something wrong, they learned, oh, okay, this way doesn't work. Let me try a different way. Oh, okay, now I know that this way also doesn't work. It's such a beautiful way to look at approaching anything. So they really looked at it in a way that helped them to grow and grow and grow. And one of the people who's a present day, and he's one of the experts of intelligence, his name is Robert Sternberg. He said that the major factor in whether people achieve expertise is not some fixed prior ability. So again, it's not they were born with this natural born thing. It's not that they were born geniuses, but it's because they practiced purposeful engagement. And purposeful engagement, it has an easier way to remember. We call it practicing hard things. So whatever things are really difficult in any kind of field, and you could pick your work and say, what's something really hard in my work? People that become experts in their work practice on purpose doing those hard things. It's called purposeful engagement. And we see over and over that people who are intellectually, their IQ, مثلا, is whatever, they're geniuses, they're not more successful. They are absolutely not more successful. it's the people that become experts. It's not because they're geniuses. People that become experts do it through practice, through this purposeful engagement. And believing that your qualities are carved in stone, this is what we were just talking about, it creates this urgency, and it's fixed. And this is, I'm good at this, and I'm always going to be good at just this. But you know what? Let me, you know when they say حد بيقاوح, like this, it doesn't work because they're not doing it in a positive way. They're not doing it in a way to help themselves. They're doing it because they feel inferior. Because they feel like they're failing and they're failing and they're failing. Not like they're learning and learning and learning.
Can you just let me interfere?
Yes.
I think what you mean is when your ego controls you or takes over, you don't actually go through the learning process. لما يكون الايجو هو اللي متحكم فيك وهو اللي بيقول لك لا احنا هنعمل كده وغصب عن اي حد وما حدش قدنا وبتاع،
صح.
بيكفر او بيعمل ماسكينج لتفكيرك ولعقلك، ما بتبقاش بتفكر بالفيجن الكامله. That's what I think يعني.
يعني ولو ممكن تتخيل أي حد يعني عنده الموضوع ده, when you imagine someone that starts this way, Mina, you always notice that they give up after a month, 2 months, 3 months, or when things get hard.
Exactly.
And even if they're going to do it, they don't last at what they're doing because they're not doing it for the right reasons. So they don't actually learn. It's not that they're not capable of learning. Manesh, forgive me if that came across that way. They're fully capable of learning. But the problem is the way they're approaching it doesn't allow them to grow.
Mm-hmm.
They're just doing it to prove that they're not less than other people. So they stop. As soon as they fail or they feel less than other people, they stop. عشان their ego, to use that same word, their ego is very fragile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she says the growth mindset is based on the belief that your basic qualities are things that you can cultivate through effort. Although people may differ in every which way, in their initial talents and aptitude, interests, or temperaments, everyone can change and grow through application and experience. Everyone. We say the only exception to this rule, and if we're going to apply it on everyone as she writes, and she even admits this, it's the lower 2% or 1 to 2% and the upper 1 to 2%. So there are people with extreme, for example, memory, like people with a photographic memory. Photographic memory is not something you can develop through practice. I think there are certain things like that are the upper 1-2% in skills or things that you're born with that you can't develop. And مثلا the lower 1 or 2%, مثلا التخلف العقلي, like the real one, it makes learning much harder. It's not that they can't learn, but this won't apply to them the same way. Yeah. And the passion for stretching yourself and sticking to it, even and especially when it's not going well, that's the hallmark of someone who's developing this mindset, where things are really hard and they're not stopping. They're really continuing to get better and better and to push themselves.
فادي، هو طب ده فعلا زي ما الناس بتقول ان في بعض الناس بتتغلب على عادات سيئه جدا يعني مثلا، او مش عادات حتى سيئه، يعني في ناس بتتغلب على الادمان او على الكانسر بمجرد بان هم من جوه بيكونوا strong believer وبيديسايد try again and again و have purpose in life، فبيقدر ان هو inject fueling his energy بحاجات positive تخليه ان هو keep trying. هل ده ليه علاقة فعلًا بإن الواحد جواه قوة خفية يقدر يطلّعها ويتعلّم حاجات هو شايف أو الناس شايفة إن هو ما يقدرش يعملها؟
Yeah, أكيد. And there's a lot of stories يعني حتى في field لوحدها اسمها psychoimmunology. يعني and they study just that, and there's a lot of proof. يعني there's a lot of research-based proof. And people that have a positive mindset recover faster, even from normal sicknesses. And even when they have the flu, when they have a cold, when they actually get faster, better. And not every time. Not every time. طبعا, we all have our limits, and our bodies have limits. But overall, it's true. As a general statement, yeah, there's a lot of proof for it.
Okay.
And in the way you think and the way you approach things, even sickness, yeah, it makes a huge difference. And your brain, yeah, our brains are much more powerful than I think anyone knows. And they always say like we know more about, and we know more about space than the brain. The brain is we know so little. We really know so little about it.
Yeah. لأن في حاجات كتيرة حتى even في الpain أنت تقدر تعمل control على
Yeah.
الpain threshold. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
No, sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry, I was agreeing. معلش.
لا it's okay. لا أنا بس كنت بفكر لأن فعلا أنت النهاردة فتحت آفاق جديدة يعني approaching the new horizon بالنسبة لتفكير فكرة يعني البوزيتيف مايند سيت. الواحد ما كانش بيفكر يتناولها بالشكل ده، بس أنت فعلا you are challenging إن من الفكرة الأساسية اللي هو يعني failure is a step of success. ده مش كل حد فينا بيقتنع حتى بيها، ساعات بيقولها لنفسه هو لكن ما يقولهاش للي حواليه، يعني عشان خاطر يرضي غروره ويرضي الايجو اللي جواه. مش مشكله انا فشلت هنجح المره اللي جايه، بس طبعا احنا احنا كلنا لازم نقولها لبعض عشان خاطر فعلا ننجح كلنا مع بعض.
That's صح. That's an excellent point. وحتى منها بتبقى يعني culture أو يعني خوف إن الناس هتقول علينا إيه، بس that's exactly what the fixed mindset is. And that was her next point. The fixed mindset makes you concerned with how you'll be judged. The growth mindset makes you concerned with improving. So when people see you failing over and over, in your mind, it doesn't matter. And when they say what you're doing is not working, yeah, that's great. Because I'm going to find a way to make it work. Like, and when someone has a fixed mindset, when what you're doing is not working, they break down and they say, I'm trying as hard as I can. What else can I do? I'm just going to stop. Maybe this is not for me. Khalas. Because they're looking at it as failure. But when you enter a mindset, you enter a new world. And it really is two very, very different worlds. And you could think of anyone that you know with a very, very fixed mindset. And you see how it affects their life and how it affects their relationship. In one world, the world of fixed traits, success is about proving you're smart or talented, validating yourself. In the other, the world of changing qualities, this is the growth mindset. It's about stretching yourself to learn something new. You're developing yourself, not validating yourself. Validating myself is, if I do this, then I'm good enough. Developing myself is, no matter, and if I do this or I don't, it doesn't determine anything about me. I want to develop myself. And I love learning, and I want to keep stretching myself, even if it's really hard. Two very, very different worlds. So, one of the things that they did, they gave fifth graders these puzzles, and they all really, really liked them. And they said when they made them harder, the kids with the fixed mindset stopped enjoying it right away. عشان if it's hard يبقى أنا if it makes me feel bad يبقى it's not fun. I only do things that make me feel good. This is a fixed mindset. لو حاجة صعبة, we're gonna stop. This is 5th graders. But for people with يعني the kids actually, it was the opposite with the growth mindset. When they told them, wasn't it hard? The kids came and they said, well, that's the fun part. They looked at it in a very different way. For people with a growth mindset, it's not about immediate perfection. It's about learning something over time. They understand they're not going to get better tomorrow or next week or the week after. It's about progress in little steps that add up later. And it's just that, it's like that famous quote, yani, becoming is better than being. So when someone, for example, is only out to be, yani, when someone is only about proving yani, how good they are, you don't have time to yani, go through a process. You either need to be good or you're not good. So you have to find something you're good at and do it. And that's what we teach kids, but unfortunately that's not the way to develop a positive mindset. In another research study she did, Dr. Carroll, she had college students, after doing poorly on a test, were given a chance to look at tests of other students. Those in the growth mindset looked at the tests of people who had done far better than they had. As usual, they wanted to correct their deficiency. But the students in the fixed mindset chose to look at the test of people who had done really poorly because it was going to make them feel better about themselves. And it's just about making myself feel better. It's not about developing myself. Okay? I don't want to...
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
So sometimes it might be discouraging لو واحد بص على حد أحسن منه بكتير, you know, it's يعني in some cases it might feel okay if it's يعني relatively slightly better, but sometimes يعني it's way better يعني, sometimes you feel discouraged. So
صح. But if you look at it and say, like, I'll never get there, whereas, like, you could say, wow, they got there, how can I get there? But you're right. For everyone, I think it's like, wow, this is a lot. And how did they get this? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But I think then it's following it up out, like, for us, if we want to develop this mindset more and more, like, how can we have this? And what are little steps we can take to get it?
yeah.
So, you see, people with the growth mindset, they say even geniuses have to work hard for their achievements. They look at it that way. They don't look at it as easy or hard.
فدي
And even the... Yeah, sorry.
سوري فدي جو ahead.
No, اتفضل.
كنت بس بستأذنك لأن في ثيوري بتتكلم على سترينث فايندر، إنك أنت تو فايند ذا سترينثز وتركز عليها، لأن ده هيخليك تأكسل وتبتر بيرفورم عن إن أنت تدور على ويكنسز وتحاول إن أنت تخليها في البوزيتيف سايد أو تخليها من ضمن السترينث بوينت بتاعتك. لكن أنت مع أنه ثيوري من الاثنين؟ لأن في اتش ار، في هيومن ريسورس بيقول لك أنت وحش في إيه عشان خاطر نحسنه، وفي حد تاني بيقول لك انت كويس في ايه عشان خاطر نادفانس فيه جدا. فانه ثيوري هي صح، ان انت تركز على نقاط قوتك ولا انك انت تشتغل على نقاط الضعف عشان خاطر تخليها قويه؟
It's a great question. It's a very hard question عشان it depends يعني what they're trying to do. And I think هما الاثنين ليهم مكانهم. This is more for يعني general life. But I think sometimes HR uses the strength theory because they wanna develop specific skills and for people in their companies so that it becomes a more efficient company. So that this person is good at this skill and this person is good at the other skill. And if
Okay.
I'm not sure because I haven't studied a lot of the organizational psychology, but I
اوكي
could
لان
tell you,
ممكن
yeah,
ممكن يكون في فعلا زي ما انت بتقول عشان في different department different skills different people كأنك orchestra كبيرة بتعزف بكل واحد بطريقة معينة فانت ما يهمكش ان اللي بيعزف على دي يعرف يعزف على ماشين تانية يعني خلاص لا اوكي ركز في اللي انت بتعمله واعمله كويس قوي غيرك هيعمل حاجة تانية بس جوه الشخص الواحد في مقابلته للحياة ولظروف حياته مع أسرته محتاج يكون هو جوه نفسه اوركسترا بحد ذاته مش كده؟
exactly بالظبط.
اوكي
it's true in ساعات like we have to develop things that we're good at and perfect them. But I think it's about the person themselves how they approach things عشان حتى if they're developing that one skill عشان that's what experts do. Experts are not good at everything. But they focus on the thing that they want to work on and they work on it over and over and over until they become experts in it. But it's not necessarily that they have to like do a lot of things, but they do a lot of things in that one area. So that they know almost everything in that area. And that's what makes them real experts. And again, I know we kind of went through this, but I don't want to. But yeah, and whenever people with a growth mindset, this will be the last, I think, just for this part, because I don't want to go over too much over the time, that they found setbacks motivating. So when they really failed hard, they would say things like they're informative and they're a wake-up call. And when this thing happened, when I got fired from this job, when this bad thing, when I failed that test, when I dropped out of school, you see that they have this, they look at something and they say, that was a wake-up call and I changed because of it. And so again, they look at things a little bit differently. Okay, but this is a full mindset kind of idea, which is a little different from what we're going to talk about next with Dr. Fogg's work.
I'm sorry, I have a question before moving on.
No, sure.
About correcting the deficiency. So,
Yeah.
مثلا, okay, people with a growth mindset, and they look at people who are better than them at something. So, دلوقتي مثلا في this whole idea إنه people like حمو بيكا والناس دي كلها like they didn't have like a proper education, they don't know how to read and write, and yet they are rich people, they are everyone knows them, they're famous, they travel, and they're right okay, like to what extent do we correct our thoughts, our mindset, and okay, like what am I looking for?
It's a good point, but it depends what the goal is. What are you trying to develop? And your point is, I agree with you 100%. But what are those? And you also have to ask, what's making those people successful? And what are your goals and what's making them successful? Is it about money or is it about the fame or the success, or like which part of it did they do that like you want to emulate? But
more of a values thing.
It's more of a values thing, Ashan. People that have a growth mindset, they don't do things they don't love, and they don't go into doing things for no reason. And sure, they can do things just to challenge themselves, but that's the value. It's to challenge myself.
Yeah.
هو للأسف في العالم الحديث اللي احنا فيه ده السكسس أو مفهوم السكسس عند ناس كتير بيبقى متشاف بحاجتين، متشاف بفلوسك قد ايه وانت مشهور قد ايه.
Sure.
بس انا ما اعتقدش ان ده مفهوم السكسس الحقيقي، لان ده مفهوم معنى كده سطحي، حاجه مش ملهاش معنى. مش ده النجاح الحقيقي، ان انت يبقى مثلا معاك فلوس او مشهور بس. لا، في قيم داخليه او في حاجات انت اتعلمتها، النوليدج اللي انت تعرفها دي في حد ذاتها دي نجاح. الحاجات اللي انت اتعلمتها، الشغلانات اللي انت اتعلمتها، الاكسبيرينس اللي انت خدتها، الناس اللي انت شفتها، طريقة تفكيرك تختلف برضو عن الناس دي. فممكن يبقى واحد غني جدا ويبقى سوري يعني دماغه مش شغالة، فهل ده يعتبر نجاح او لا؟ فهي تعتمد الواحد بيقيس النجاح ازاي.
Yeah, بالظبط. يعني ما it depends what the goal is. ما هو a growth mindset doesn't automatically يعني هي لوحدها it won't make you successful لو انت مش عارف انت بتحاول توصل ليه. Because if I'm trying to build a growth mindset in everything in my life, well, there's not enough hours in the day for, and I have to know what I'm working towards.
متهيألي برضه فادي نفس الفكرة بتاعت إن في ناس كتيرة جدا مثلا في US كل السيفنج بتاعهم بتشتري بيه مثلا اللي هو ال 499 أو اللي هي البيبر بتاعت $1,000,000 مثلا لوتري أو حاجة زي كده.
Yeah.
فبيند أب إن هو كل ثروته راحت في ورق وما كسبش حاجة، وواحد بس من ضمن ال10 مليون بيكسب. لكن في حين ان هو لو كان عمل سيفنج للتيكتس دي، الورق اللي هو اهدر فيه الفلوس، كان ممكن يكون معاه على الاقل مثلا $100,000 $200,000 ينفعوه في حياته، بدل ما هو ما معهوش حاجه وقدر ما معهوش حاجه. فواضح ان هي بيلدينج بروسيس زيها زي واحد بيفكر في سيفنج ولا بيفكر في لوتري.
Yeah, absolutely. لو حد الهدف بتاعه ان هو يعمل فلوس كتير، يعني that's okay. بس نسأل okay طب how can I make more money? Right? Then you start asking yourself, how can I make more money? This way, no. This way, no. This way, no. This way, no. And someone that's really, really, really motivated to make more money, they're going to find a way. Right? Like, and people do it. They wake up really early. And I know people that are teenagers that are 18, 19, 20 that made, I'm not going to say millions, but they made a significant amount of money with stocks and with real estate حتى. But those people used to wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. every single day, and they used to read over and over and over and ask people and say, what should I invest in? This, why not this, and why not this? There were a lot of hours that went into everything they did. So whatever the goal is, you ask yourself, how can I do it? And when you fail, or when you're not successful right away, you don't take it as a setback. You say, great, what else? How else can I do it? But I think it's more about we could think about it more as the approach than the exact way to do it. I'm going to try to go through this part fast. And we're supposed to end at 9, right?
لا براحتنا عادي.
ولا يهمك عادي، انا مش مروح النهارده اصلا.
كلنا هنبات معاك خلاص.
اوكي.
The second part اللي هو بتاع Dr. Fogg, his idea is how can we build very, very, very small habits that we can keep. وكلنا عشان we always try when you think about the goals that we set for ourselves, كلنا we're very good at having goals, but after 1 week or 2 weeks we give up. And there's a lot of reasons why we give up. He breaks it down a little bit. And we'll go through it, and hopefully it's useful for you. And I found his work very useful to read and to apply as well. He said, first, we judge ourselves too harshly when we fail. So already, you could see where the fixed mindset is. So we have to be aware of that. Number 2, we mistake aspirations for behaviors. Just because I want to do something doesn't mean I'm actually doing it. My aspiration to become rich, to become smart, to become famous, to become successful, a successful researcher, a successful doctor, whatever it may be, does not mean I'm actually doing those things. Which is a very funny, but it's a very real thing. Because you always ask people, what is it that you aspire to? And they say, I aspire to do this. You're like, oh, that's really great. What are you working on to help yourself with that? And they say, nothing, I don't have enough time. It's like, okay. So you're not working towards it at all. It's not really, it's more of a dream than something that you're really working towards. So a behavior is something you could do right now, or something you could do next week or the week after. It's something that is measured, that you could look at and say, I am doing this. An aspiration is more of an idea that you want to hope to get to. For example, like I have an aspiration to become, a millionaire. It's like, okay, that's great. That's an idea, but it doesn't give me anything to get there. He says, third, we set big goals, these big lofty goals, and we rely on motivation to achieve them. And he says this is a big mistake. We say, I'm really motivated, and if I'm motivated, khalas, that's it. If I'm motivated, that means I'm going to get there. And that's absolutely not true. He says without a trigger, or the ability to do the behavior, or without the motivation, the motivation by itself won't take you there. It's not, I could be motivated to become a bodybuilder. It doesn't mean that I'm actually going to do it. So then how do we actually change these things? Right? He says, think about what you want to do. Give me any goal. You guys give me any small goal.
أنا عايز أنزل 10 كيلو.
Okay, perfect. That's always a good one and an easy one.
That's not a small goal for me.
So it's a goal to lose weight. Very good. He's going to say, now we know what you want to do. This is the big goal, but this is not a behavior. This is an aspiration. So now we want to think about what actual behavior can you do every day that you can do in less than 30 seconds that would help you with this goal. What do you think, Alkaruf?
متهيألي إن أنا أفكر نفسي إن أنا عايز أنزل 10 كيلو.
لا لازم تبقى behavior. لا دي فكرة.
أصل أنا مش عايز أبطل أكل.
لا مش بيقول تبطل أكل. اعمل a small behavior that will take you 30 seconds or 1 minute.
Drink more water.
Sure, drinking more water. But again, it has to be something that you could do in 30 seconds. So you can't drink more water in 30 seconds. You see how we set these goals, but then it's but how do you measure that?
ممكن أتفرج على اليوتيوب حاجة في اليوتيوب بتشجع على losing weight مثلا أو حاجة زي كده.
Okay, you're right, but that's not something you're actively doing. But you're right. That's something I need to keep in mind for just a second.
Okay.
So one easy one is you'll do 2 push-ups.
Okay.
Just 2 push-ups.
Okay.
Very, very small, and it's a behavior. So he says, okay, now that we know what you're doing, and it's a very, very easy behavior, find a time in your day that's an anchor time or an anchor moment. So there is always stuff in our day that never changes. And we wake up, brush our teeth, for example, or we have lunch and take a nap, or whatever it is, we all have very different routines. لكن في حاجات نفسها في اليوم عمرها ما بتتغير. Before I go to bed, I wash my face. Whatever it is. He says, find an anchor moment for a routine that you always do. And then tie this new behavior either right before or right after. So before I brush my teeth, I will do 2 push-ups. Yeah, but how many push-ups is that, Uncle Irfan? That'll be 2 in the morning and 2 at night.
Okay.
And then he says there's another very important step that we always forget when we're trying to work on building these good habits in our life. He says we don't celebrate. We don't give ourselves any credit. We do 2 push-ups وبعدين بنزعل من نفسنا. We're like, it's only 2 push-ups. خلاص.
ادخل المطبخ بقى.
اعمل الميلك شيك بتاعي.
No, and you can. But so he says do something right away. And he says as much as you can do it, make it really simple. Like, look, you could hold your hands and say yes. And these small things, and you could even try it, if you have your camera off or on, doing physical movements, like celebrating movements, it's actually true. It releases hormones in your brain. It releases dopamine in the brain. And what happens is over time, these things become, it becomes more and more engraved in the brain. And I know it sounds funny. Saduni, I know it sounds very funny, but this is really true. When you do something and you make it feel good, and you celebrate, you give yourself credit, even as something as simple as saying, yes, I did it. Your brain recognizes stuff like that, and it makes you more likely to do it. So he says, the easier behavior is to do, the more likely the behavior will become a habit. So we start very, very, very small. 2 push-ups in the morning, 2 push-ups at night. And the rule is, I'm gonna do it before I brush my teeth. Right?
Okay.
So he says for this to happen, you need a prompt. A prompt is something that you look at and it reminds you. It's a reminder. So, Uncle Rufa, what's going to be your prompt? What's your reminder?
كل يوم يعني؟
إيه اللي هتشوفه عشان يفكرك إن أنت لازم تعمل 2 push-ups.
ما أنا مش أنا لو ربطتها بالحاجة اللي أنا بتعود عليها كل مرة فهتبقى هو ده الألارم بتاعي أو ده الريمايندر بتاعي.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could do it in whatever. You could say مثلا touching my toothbrush is a prompt. Or I'm going to put a picture next to the toothbrush. Or a sign or something, a little post-it sign next to a toothbrush. Whatever works, but you have to, there has to be something that reminds you. Because without a reminder, we forget. And when we forget, we're less likely to do it.
حتى لو احنا بنعمل نفس الحاجة اللي attached بيها؟
We can't, but it depends. It depends how good the anchor is.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
So he says, if مثلا you might do it once or twice, 3 times, 4, but then you might notice إن أنت بقالك يومين نسيت تعملها. He says, okay, that means that you need a stronger reminder.
Okay.
So the problem is not your motivation, and the problem is not the behavior. The problem is the forgetting. So very, very simple. He says, if you're forgetting, you're going to lose motivation. Easy. So he says, you got to know what's going to remind you. Make it really clear. If it's a phone alarm, if it's, again, it depends what the anchor is, what the behavior is.
انا عايز اقول لك على حاجه كمان فعلا صدقني يا فادي. انا لما كان وزني بينزل كنت بشوف الميزان اللي هو السكيل بتاع
Sure. Yeah.
وانا وزني بيزيد يعني اولموست مش شايفه في البيت رغم ان هو موجود وانا عارف مكانه فين. بس بتجنب ان انا ريكوجنايز ان هو موجود. ففعلا زي ما انت بتقول حتى لو في عاده ربطت بيها محتاج تعمل حاجه زي ست الارم يعني الفكره دي.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So he says, if you want to think about your motivation, he says there's three sources. Yourself, yani it's something you want. Yeah, it's gonna give us benefit or punishment if we don't do it. Or your context, yani I want to do it because all my friends are doing it. Yani I want to get better at it so that yani I'm able to hang out with them. I'm able to keep up. And he says all of those are fine. All of those are fine. Just know which one it is for you. It says the best ones that we do, and the best behaviors, the golden behaviors, they follow three rules. Number one, it puts us towards a goal, a big goal, or an aspiration, yani, as he called it. You want to do this behavior. Yani, I want to do push-ups because I know where it's going to take me. And very, very, very importantly, and this is one that I think we forget a lot of the times, you can actually do it. Can you do this behavior or not? Like, can I do push-ups? If I can't, then I need to think of something else. So he says, can you do it? So these are three rules to keep. Okay, ability. Do you have enough time? So when we think ability, it's not just physical. Do I have enough time to do this? Do I have enough time to do 2 push-ups? Some people will say yes, some people will say no. Do I have enough money to do this? Because maybe this new behavior is something that costs money. And for example, maybe I'm going to say I'm going to learn coding and I signed up for an online class. Do I have enough money to do this, or am I just wanting to do it? Am I physically capable? Does the behavior require a lot of creative or mental energy? Is it something that's so big that's going to هتتعبني? Does the behavior fit your current routine, or does it need me to make a new routine? All of these things are, when we say, am I able, we have to answer very, very directly. So, Uncle Rufa, you said this earlier. When I think of my ability, if I don't know how to exercise, then maybe there's actually a problem of skills. So maybe, yes, I actually realized I don't even know how to exercise. So I'm gonna start by watching 2-minute videos before I brush my teeth, or after I brush my teeth, right? Because if I start doing the behavior and I don't actually have the skills to do it, that's a huge problem, because I'm gonna do the push-ups wrong. So maybe sometimes the behavior is actually increasing your skills by learning, by doing, by asking. So it depends where the ability is. He says number 2, depending on what kind of skill you're building, get the right tools and resources. And if you're learning to cook, then make sure you have cooking tools. Don't just want to cook. And make sure you have a proper knife, for example. And then number 3, he says, make the behavior tiny. You have to start really, really, really small. And don't say, and if I start small, this is not going to get me to my goal. That's not true, because the goal is building habits. So the prompts, these are the reminders. He says there's person prompts. So it relies on you doing something. For example, it's me going to brush my teeth, that's a person prompt. Yani, I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna go.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, no, forgive me, that's a context prompt. Yani, when I walk into the bathroom and see the toothbrush. A person prompt is something that comes naturally, like if I'm thirsty and when I go to drink. So we know for sure we're gonna get thirsty. So it could be that whenever I go to drink water, I'm gonna do 2 push-ups. That's a person prompt. A context prompt is it looks at the environment around us and something reminding us in that. And then action prompts is a behavior that you already do that can remind you of a new habit that you want to cultivate. So whenever you drink coffee. So the context and action, they could actually overlap a little bit. But you have to be careful again to know when to do it. Ashan, if that routine is already very, very busy, and if I know my morning routine, I'm already making coffee and making my bag and getting my vitamins, and now I'm going to add something new, maybe this is not the best time to add to my morning routine. I said, see what it is that you can use that comes natural or in your environment and use it. Okay. And he says, match the physical location. So you need to find the anchor that you're going to do and in the same location. So Malish Uncle Rufa, for you, it might be the bathroom for this, okay?
Yeah. I realize.
Yeah. And then make sure you know how often you want to do it. So make sure, I'm going to do it once a day or twice a day. And then match the theme and purpose. So whatever this new anchor is, it has to do with like a theme. So for example, when I brush my teeth, I'm taking care of my health. When I'm doing push-ups, I'm also taking care of my health. He says if you match them, they tend to stick better. You don't have to, but he feels they stay. And in his research, he felt they stick better. And I think this is the last slide. And then he said the last thing is the emotion. This is the celebration. Yeah, and he says, give yourself a positive feeling when you do these really, really tiny things. Do the 2 push-ups, and get up, and clap for yourself, or close your eyes, and you can even turn it into a prayer. And be thankful for that. You could do 2 push-ups, and you say, God, thank you for even giving me the ability to do these 2 push-ups. And that could be a way of celebrating. But do something that gives you an immediate, it can't be 2 minutes later or even 1 minute later. It has to be the thing is done, the behavior is done, I celebrate right away. Because this releases that dopamine into the brain, that neurotransmitter dopamine. And this is how, it's the reward pathway that works in the brain. And it's also the addiction pathway. But it's good. This is why it becomes a habit. All of this together, hopefully it was useful to think about maybe approaching positive thinking in a way that's slightly different than the way we're usually taught. But yeah, and thank you for putting up with me for a very long time.
فادي متشكرين جدا بجد، انت فتحت لنا فكره حلوه قوي، والحاجه اللي احنا محتاجين نعملها تملي بنقول لنفسنا انا ما عنديش وقت اقعد مع ربنا ولو 5 دقائق، ما عنديش وقت اصلي، بس اتلوكس فعلا زي ما احنا بنطبق نفس الاكسرسايز على اللوزنج ويت مثلا. لو انا فكرت في الكتاب المقدس ان انا يكون لي علاقه، او لو فكرت فعلا ان انا يكون لي علاقه بربنا، حتى من بغض النظر ان انا افتح حاجه اقراها، ان انا لما قبل ما اعمل برضه التوث براش ان انا ارفع قلبي واصلي اللي حواليا، او اصلي لشغلي، او اصلي لاولادي، او اصلي لزوجتي. ده يخليني اعملها باستمرار واكررها باستمرار، زي ما ابونا بشوي كامل كان بيعلمنا ان احنا نفتكر ربنا في الحاجات الأساسية، يعني وأنت بتلبس البنطلون وأنت بتخش الحمام اغسلني فأبيض أكثر من الثلج. بتحاول تربط الحاجة الحلوة اللي أنت عايز تخليها acquired habit بحاجات أنت بتعملها ولازم تعملها كل يوم، مش حاجة واحدة بس، حتى مع كذا حاجة أنت عارف. فبيصبح ربنا هو الأساس والحاجات بتتكرر جنبه. مش بلزق ربنا مع الحاجات المتكررة، بلزق كل حاجة في ربنا. ده اللي خلى البابا كيرلس حتى وهو في العمليات يعني يقول مزامير، لأنه هو ده الأساس، ده اللي هو عايشه، ده اللي هو فرحان بيه، ده اللي هو بيموتيفيت نفسه، اللي هو بيقول فعلا I did it. يعني زي ما انت بتقول كافئ نفسك، هو كان بيكافئ نفسه لأنه شايف ربنا في كل خطوة، وشايف ان هو صح ان هو يسلم كل حاجة لربنا. فده بيخليه يخلق جواه behavior. فأتمنى فعلا ان احنا نكون قديسين لو عرفنا ناخد التايني behaviors ديت ونحاول نثبتها ونكافئ نفسنا عليها. وفعلا لو بدينا وانت بتفتح عينك الصبح انك انت وانت حتى على السرير قبل ما تقوم قبل ما تعمل اي حاجة تشكر ربنا على انك انت صحيت من النوم، غيرك ممكن ما يكونش قادر، او هقدر اروح للحمام. الحاجات البسيطة دي تخلي ربنا في حياتك، غير ان انا اقول لك اقف امسك الاجبيه واقعد ربع ساعه اقرا 7 صلوات اللي انت مش ممكن هتعملهم لو انت ما بديتش بالحاجه البسيطه. فعشان كده فعلا ميرسي ليك يا فادي ان انت بتدينا باستمرار امل، وفعلا التوك كان حلو قوي والانتر اكشن من الشباب كان جميل. ربنا يخليك لينا